I've now been using the mini panel from Blackmagic Designs for about 4 months, and now when I'm used to using this equipment, then it's very hard going back in grading just with the mouse. When I bought this, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about this panel, and I think the most videos that I watched was just overviews or reviews, but they basically went over what's there and what it does. But what happens when you move the different knobs? What happens when you move this middle wheel? So I thought to myself, let's make a couple different videos showing you a bit more in depth, like how everything works from the hardware into the program. I kind of want to go through the overall panel before we head into the more in-depth of everything. So I think this will become a small series of videos. There actually is 3 different panels available. We have the biggest Davinci Resolve Advanced panel, we have the smallest Davinci Resolve Micro panel, and then we have the in-between panel, which is called Mini panel. If you take a look at the bottom half of the mini panel, it's actually identical to the micro panel. If you come from a micro panel and are switching up to this panel, it makes it very easy. The major difference from the small panel is the upper half of the panel. You have dual high-resolution LCD screens, and right underneath the screens we have 8 soft knobs, and over the displays we have 8 different soft buttons. There are also 2 banks of control buttons. On the left hand side of the screen we have 15 palette selection buttons, and what I mean with that is that you have all the selection buttons here in the program. So for example, if we press raw, we immediately open up the raw section in the color page. If we press curves, we immediately come into the curve section. The buttons on the top of the screen will represent the different curves modes in the color tab in the curves. You can see them right here. So for example, if we press hue versus hue, it takes us into the hue versus hue. And if we press sat versus sat, it takes us into sat versus sat. So to go over the 8 soft knobs, we can go into the curves again and custom curves. Then you can see that we have 0%, 20%, 40, 60, 80, 100. And those in this curve actually represent the curve itself. So if we take the 20% and drag it down, you can see that by moving this knob, we now are taking control of the actual curves in the program. You might have noticed the arrows right up here, and those are just for navigation. So for example, if we go into primaries, then you can see we have 2 little dots here. That means that if we hit the right arrow, we jump over to the next dot, and the next dot usually is another menu section. So for example, if we go back, you can see that we are watching the lift and the gamma. We can still adjust the gain. But if we want to see on the screens, then we need to press the right button. And this also changes what the 8 knobs here is controlling. That's just briefly about the LCDs, the knobs, the buttons, and the palette selection buttons on the left hand side. Now let's take a look at the right hand side where we have the quick selection buttons. And the quick selection buttons is pretty straightforward. It's 15 of them. Basically what you can do here is to add serial nodes, add parallel nodes, and then we have layer nodes. So if we add a serial and press layer, we add layer nodes. And then we have node plus linear. It makes a serial node, but it also makes a linear window. Another one is the node plus circle window. This is super useful. I use it a lot. And again, it's not that big of a deal, but it makes it really simple. If you're going to make a window with a new serial node, you just bam, and you have it. And then we have the append button. Say for example that we are working in the first node and we are making adjustments here. And then all of a sudden I would like to make a new serial node downstream the node tree. Like I would like to sharpen the image, for example. then I would like to do that in the end. Even though we are at the first node, we can just hit the pend and it will directly create a new serial node in the end of the node tree. And then copy paste. Yep, I think you guessed it, paste. The next button is the full viewer. You have also a viewer here. And if we press this viewer right here, you can see that we get a nice big full view screen. But what this full viewer does is that it gives us a big viewer, but we still have some tools and some options to work with. So the next two buttons, prev still and next still, is the previous still or the next still. So if you are to match different clips, you can enable the image wiper. Basically, we can jump between different stills that we have. And then we have the highlight, which enables us to see what the window is controlling. And the previous keyframe and the next keyframe is basically, if you're working with keyframes, you can easily jump between different keyframes. And the last button is the reference button. This toggle key changes the reference wipe mode between gallery, timeline, and offline sources. This is not that great of a way of showing it, but right now we're in the gallery toggle. And if we press it, we're jumping to the timeline toggle. So if I had another clip in here and that was selected, you would see that pop up right here. And if we press it again, we go to the offline sources, which I haven't never used. So I don't know really what it would show or how to use it. But if we press it again, it would go back to the gallery. Timeline, offline, gallery. So that's the top part of the mini panel. Let's go down one step and go through the bottom half of the panel. First off, we have 12 different control knobs on the top. And here on the side, we have a couple of different buttons, and it's divided into 3 groups. So it's the top group, the middle group, and the bottom group. And then in the middle part, we have the trackball area. We have 3 different trackballs in the middle, and then we have 3 different amplitude wheels. On top of those, we have 9 different buttons that looks exactly the same, and they are actually just reset buttons. And then lastly, we have the 3 buttons in the middle, which controls if you want to go to log mode, and to control the offset wheel and the full viewer. To start off with the control knobs, the 3 on the left side of the panel is Y lift, Y gamma, and Y gain. And these 3 controls the luminance channel of the lift gamma gain. So now when I did those adjustments, if you go down here in the primary section in Davinci, you can see that the image is affected, as you saw, and we have affected only the luminance channels of the lift and the gain. So if we reset those adjustments, which you do with pressing down the control knob like that, and for the Y gain like that, and that is the way you reset all the control knobs on the mini panel. You just press it once and it will reset your adjustment. Then we have the contrast, pivot, and mid detail, all of which you can find here. Contrast, pivot, mid detail. Then we have the color boost, shadows, and highlights, which we can find down here. Color boost, shadows, highlights. And lastly, saturation, hue, and luma mix. And now in the top group, we have the first button, grab still, easy. It just grabs the still. And then we have undo or redo. So if we make an adjustment and we undo, it resets. It's basically Control or Command C. The play still button, I just realized that it opens up the image wipe. And I didn't know this until now. It makes it much more convenient to open up the image wipe, which I have done in this video several times by going up here. And combining play still with previous still and next still, it gets really fast. The button in the middle here that says Prev Mem is actually something that I've never used, It says that each clip by default has a memory of its grade, sizing, and so on, which is saved in the reference of the source timecode. If you're grading a clip and move from it to another clip, grade is saved automatically in a memory for that clip. If you come back to the clip and make a change to the grade, then decide you don't like the change, select prev mem to return to the previous grade status you found when selecting the clip. That doesn't actually make me any wiser. So how I think it works, if we were to have two clips here, if we cut that, now we have two, and we made an adjustment on the first one like this, and then jump to the next clip, and we made some adjustments here. And then if we jump back to the previous clip, and then we add another node, and then we made some more adjustments. And now if we hit the prev mem, it will take us back to the state that the clip were before we were to come back and make new changes. I think that's what it is. I'm a bit unsure about this, but anyway. And the reset button, it does what it says. It resets the nodes, but it could reset it in two ways. So for example, if we had multiple nodes and we make this adjustment here, if we want to reset that node, which we are in right now, we could hit reset and it will reset that node. If we would like to reset the whole node tree, we can just press it and hold, and it will instantly reset the whole node tree back to one serial node. Then we have the loop button, which I have on. So if we are to play the clip hits the end, it will automatically jump back and play again. The bypass button bypasses the whole grade. So if we go in and we apply a grade here, we can just hit the bypass button, and you can see up here, the color grade is now completely bypassed, and you will see the original image. Let's hit reset. And the disabled is just disabling the node that you're working in. And the middle section is pretty straightforward. It's if we have multiple nodes, we can jump through all the nodes. And we have frame if we want to go frame by frame, next frame, previous frame. And if we had multiple different clips in the timeline, we can just jump through the timeline with these previous clip and the next clips. And then on the bottom we have play forward, play backwards, and stop. Now we have gone over the whole mini panel, and from now on I will start to make separate videos with more in-depth on how it actually works together with Davinci. So for example, one video will be the trackball section with the amplitude wheels, show you exactly what happens in Davinci when we are moving the trackballs, moving the amplitude wheels, and how the panel is affecting the program. Another video might be in the curve section, and we go through all the curves and what it does and how it looks when we are moving the knobs like this, just so you can see and give you a better understanding on how it actually works before you buy this panel. I hope you find this video helpful. I know that there are plenty of videos just like this, which I have watched myself, but I did want to do this overview of the panel before we are going in depth on different things. Thank you very much for watching the video, and if there is something special that you want me to cover, or if you're wondering something about the panel, just comment and let me know, and I will try to answer them as best I can. See you in the next one. Bye.